This week on the show, Russian Doll's Allison Silverman, comedian Jackie Kashian, plus Jeremy Culhane. It's the Novelizers.
Don't want your popcorn, don't want your milk duds, don't want my shoes stuck in pools of sticky cola. Don't show me romance, don't show me fist fights, just show me words printed out under the book lights. Yeah, baby, novelize the movie. Give me sentences, paragraphs, and nothing to see. Yeah, novelize the movie. Write a book and turn it into a podcast.
Welcome to the Novelizers. I'm Christine Bullen here with Stephen Levinson and Kevin Carter. If you're just tuning in for the very first time, you're probably wondering, who are the Novelizers? Well, we're a bunch of folks from all over, though mostly Dayton, Ohio, and Los Angeles, united in a common mission to turn movies into funny audiobooks. We do it by recruiting the best comedy writers in the world to write them, and then the best actors and comedians to narrate.
Case in point, this week's novelizer, Allison Silverman, she's written for Russian Doll, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Conan. She was also the head writer of The Colbert Report, wrote for Portlandia, The Office, The Daily Show, and more. And it was narrated by Jackie Kashian, an amazing comedian you've seen on After Midnight, Conan, Corden, and everywhere else.
How do we get these amazing people? The secret is we have no idea. But hey, when life gives you lemonade, you drink the lemonade and you don't ask too many questions.
However, you can keep the lemonade flowing by going to thenovelizers.com, clicking on the link to our Patreon, and pledging just $5 a month. That's it. That's less than $1.50 per episode.
Before we dive into this week's chapter, Kevin, catch us up on the story so far.
As the epic battle between Neo and Agent Smith is going, at some point, Agent Smith gets hit by a train. Neo thinks that he's killed him, but Agent Smith comes out of the train unharmed. Now, Neo decides to run. While this is going on, the Sentinels are coming to find everyone else. Neo finally makes it to a place to pick up his phone, and as soon as he enters the room, Agent Smith is there and puts 10 bullets in his chest.
Thanks, Kevin. Now, Jackie Kashian, novelize us.
The Matrix, Chapter 20, Candle in the Machine, Goodbye, Mr. Anderson, novelized by Allison Silverman, narrated by Jackie Kashian. Screech! The subway wheels sparked, metal against metal. Passengers on their way to their fake jobs to make fake crap to sell to fake people were deafened by the noise, but didn't question it. They never questioned anything, not even the body under the wheels. Agent Smith was dead. On the platform, Neo, previously running for the exit, stopped. His intuition was the only shine in a rusted universe, and he was beginning to trust it. Something was wrong. He stared at the train, the industrial serpent of the underground, and then the serpent opened, its doors a cloaca. And through that cloaca emerged a perfect snake egg, Agent Smith. Alive, whole, new. He made eye contact with Neo, frozen in place. The eyes of Smith hissed, "Yes." At the very same moment, far from the Matrix, another uneasy encounter was in the very midst of transpiring. A group of destructive robotic squids, also known as Sentinels, admitted to one another the truth of their relentless search for human flesh. "If I'm being totally honest," one robotic squid confessed, "their mangled bodies turn me on." A hush fell over the frazzle as a group of robotic squids was colloquially known. And then a second small voice intoned, "Me too." Mechanical tentacles vibrated, hummed with this shared secret. No longer shamed by their desires, the robotic squids en masse agreed that crushed bones and torn soft tissue tipped them into sexual frenzy. And off they went, tentacles high-fiving to find a ship and human receptacles for their passion. Their first target? The Nebuchadnezzar. They flankled, as their high-speed movement was called, a good long way before detection. Then, at long last, the energy disturbance was detected by the ship. "Proximity warning, proximity warning, proximity warning." The signal flashed its menacing message on a screen. Here stood Morpheus, Greek god of dreams, Trinity, Christian union of divinity, and Tank, common home to tropical fish. They were assembled on their viewing platform, or as it came to be known shortly after babies were bathed in and fed with the blended remains of their parents, Video Village. Sentinels, Tank helpfully reminded his fellow revolutionaries, they're what we call deadly robot squids. Devoted to their beleaguered ship, Morpheus and Trinity, like Han Solo and Chewbacca but without the annoying humor, raced to the helm. Morpheus loaded the live hologram program, and there they were, holographic representations of the Sentinels, speeding along. Many of them used their tentacles to make rude in-and-out gestures, making clear the sexual nature of their crusade against the ship. How long, Trinity asked. Morpheus sighed. Oh, they've been known to disrespect human corpses up to several weeks after death. Trinity frowned. I meant till they get here. Oh, 5 or 6 minutes. He turned his attention to the hole in the floor that led to the primary level of the ship. Tank, charge the EMP. Charging the EMP always meant trouble. In the first place, it suggested that you would use the EMP. And in the second place, using the EMP, while effective at deterring robotic squid, meant anyone still in the Matrix was toast. This was literal. A poor soul who didn't get out in time would find him or herself transformed by the Matrix into a piece of singed bread. We can't use the EMP until Neo is out of the Matrix, Trinity declared, something deeper than friendly concern entering her voice. Tank popped his head through the hole in the floor. Too bad you weren't this worried about Neo in the subway station, Trinity. He turned to Morpheus. She stopped Neo to hem and haw about who knows what shit, right as I was trying to transport them up. That's why Neo's not safe here right now. Morpheus turned to her, his eyes cold. Is this true, Trinity? Trinity shrugged. I don't know, maybe. Fuck you, Tank. Morpheus sighed. This has happened before. It's how we lost Clobber and Glueball and Density and Riddlestink. Trinity stood up and rolled her eyes. Glueball sucked. Morpheus, his fatherly air stronger than ever, pointed her back to her seat. Trinity, I want to answer your question for the last time, so you don't feel you have to ask your fellow warriors at deadly moments. Trinity eyed him, interested but suspicious. The answer, Trinity, is yes. It's okay for us to kill all these innocent people. It's fine. Totally. So are we good? He held up his fist, a friendly invitation. Yeah, we are. She brought her fist to his, and in a world realer than any we'll ever know, they bumped. Back in the Matrix, a typical businessman stood on a corner on a typical business call. It was about destroying a nearby community center so the people who used it would have nowhere to go. There was big money behind it. But just as he was about to seal the deal, Neo, desperate for a portal to get back to the ship, whizzed by and stole the phone right out of his hands. My phone, he cried out. My phone! It was just the clue Agent Smith, who'd lost Neo in the chase, needed to locate his prey. Realigned, he was back on the hunt. Meanwhile, Neo ran with the phone, intending to contact his operator when the voice on the other line rang out. Dave? Dave? Are you still there? Neo, running full speed, brought the phone to his ear. Dave isn't here. In fact, Dave was never here. He's in a mechanical pod, hooked into a massive network that supplies power to the computers that rule the Earth. We all are. Neo jumped over a line of trash cans as he talked. The voice on the other line responded, Yeah, that checks out. So what do I do? It's up to you. Me and my friends got a ton of weapons and started blowing people up willy-nilly. Huh. But why do you get to judge whether these other lives are worth living? Gotta go, dude, Neo intoned and dialed Tank. Operator, Tank was on the case and directed Neo to a portal at Wabashan Lake. But getting there meant getting through a crowd, a popular farmer's market, where anyone at any time could morph into an agent. It also meant facing some of the relics of the final war between the computers and the humans, when the humans discovered they could convince computers that Chicago's farmers markets had piles of watermelons. It was a funny, but in the end, pointless prank, which did nothing for the war effort and highlighted the humans' lack of foresight. Now, the Matrix had watermelons piled in every farmer's market. Stockholm, Helsinki, Moscow. And those who never had the chance to take a red pill never knew to question it. Faster, Neo raced through an apartment building, stopping briefly to help an old lady open a jar of spaghetti sauce while still evading the agents. The evidence was mounting that he was the one. Meanwhile, as they swarm ever closer to the Nebuchadnezzar, The sexual excitement of the robot squids grew. They began to think of themselves not as robot squids, or even as sentinels, but as robot sperm preparing to enter and fertilize the ship. And for once, they weren't ashamed of it. In fact, they took full ownership of their desire, which fed it and nourished it until it reached epic proportions. Landing on the ship, they took out their lasers to cut through the hull, just as they'd always fantasized. Inside, Morpheus's finger grazed the EMP switch. It was the only way to fight off the sperm, but it meant doom for Neo. He gave Trinity a reassuring nod. He's gonna make it. In Video Village, Tank expertly directed Neo, still on the run, through a maze of Chicago buildings, alleys, and improv shows. It was working. If this kept up, Neo would be safe in his dystopian nightmare reality in no time. As he drew closer to the portal, Tank shouted out the apartment number where Neo would finally find his exit. 303, he shouted. 303. Hull breach, hull breach, hull breach. The screen announced the devastating news with its typical brevity. It was never one to mince words. "They're inside," Tank announced to Morpheus, now standing beside him. But in a way it had already been announced, by the screen and by the groans and moans of the robot sperm, who were really into it. Things didn't look good, except for the robot sperm. In the Matrix, Neo ran, still somehow evading the agents, room numbers whizzing by. In his head, he played a song he invented to remember which apartment held his portal. 301, run, Neo, run. 302, got more running to do. 303, from the agents I flee. 304, gonna kick down the door. 305, shoot, I went too far. A hairpin turn and he was back in front of 303, a life-saving instant before the agents were upon him. He broke down the door and there he was, face to face with Agent Smith, his gun raised to Neo's chest. Neo was fast, but that was still too slow. A shot sounded, a shell fell to the ground. Neo put his hand to his chest and the blood squeezed through his fingers. More shots. He fell back and the hallway wall rose up to meet him. On the ship, Trinity stood by Neo, tears in her eyes, watching the blood spurt from his mouth, while the robot sperm continued to rut with abandon. Blood, sex, death, she thought, a holy trinity. In the Matrix, Neo was dying, and the thoughts that raced through his head were somehow instantaneous and also grindingly slow. All the glitches he'd never noticed that were now so maddeningly clear. When he'd cheated on his girlfriend, whom he'd loved repeatedly, that, it was now obvious, was a mistake of a computer. The drinking night after night, though it didn't make him happy, glitch. The way publishers kept rejecting his manuscript because it was, quote, humorless and derivative, glitch. In a lot of ways, his whole life had been a glitch. And only now was it clear that he was awesome. Those were Neo's last thoughts as he dropped to the floor. An agent put his hand to his neck. Nothing. No pulse. "He's gone," he said. And Smith smiled. "Goodbye, Mr. Anderson."
Thank you, Jackie. Every week on the show, we interview someone who worked on the actual film, The Matrix. Kevin, let's hear that interview.
Hey everybody, welcome to another interview portion of the Novelizers. I'm Kevin Carter, and I'm here with Jeremy Culhane, who was I want to use this right, the creator of the actual, the visual of The Matrix. Explain, I'm getting it wrong. I want you to tell people what it is.
The visual genius behind The Matrix, yes, that is right. I developed, and the Wachowski siblings came up to me and said, "We've got this idea for a movie." I read it, I loved it, and I said, "It's not visual enough. Let me come up with ideas for you." So we sat down, we had a lovely weekend in Ojai, California, and we busted it out harder than you can bust a move.
Okay, I get it. I get it. How does one brain work to create something like that? Like how is these images? Because The Matrix, we both know, was a blockbuster. It shaped the way the movies are done today. How does your brain know that stuff?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'll ask you a similar question. How does anyone dream? How does anyone have idea? How does anyone believe? It's there that lies within the idea of developing, or as I'd like to call it, matrix.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So for me, the process was a lot of, they approach me and they say, "We've got this idea. You take a pill and you wake up. There's a world behind the world." And I go, "Well, that's interesting, but what if they were in goo when they wake up?" what if it was more like cattle vibes? And they said, ooh, where did you think of that? And I said, I just thought it up. I just thought it up. I had a dream last night about being covered in goo, and I wanted to use it in a movie, but I have no camera. Why don't you use it? Take it and run.
Gotcha. Did you ever feel that some of what the Matrix was seemed kind of confusing to the viewer though, but from a visual standpoint?
Mm.
Because we see the goo, we see the tentacles, and then we see a lady in a red dress while everybody's walking around downtown. Like it was very all over the place at some points. Was that what you was going for?
That's exactly what I was going for. I wanted it to feel like you just woke up from a dream and you barely remember it. You go, all I remember, it was so visually gripping. All I remember was red dress, rabbit tattoo, goo everywhere, guns, kung fu. That's the idea. And so we had this weekend, I brought out a whiteboard and I just started drawing. Unfortunately, I only had 3 types of colors. I had a red marker, I had a blue marker, and I had a green marker. And then I also had a black marker, but I don't count that as a color. I count that as an aura of a color for me.
I like
in terms
that.
of marking. Yes.
I like that.
So for me, it was they kind of took a lot from that. There was moments when we were in the weekend and I said, let me just figure this out. Let me just work it out. And so I'd start writing in green and I'd draw the picture in green. They said, hold on a second. I love that. And then so they make their whole movie a lightly green. This is how things happen in Hollywood. This is how things happen.
I get it. That makes perfect sense. Were you always this vivid, like when it comes to things that's in your mind, like even before the Matrix even happened, and you just as a person, were you always this vivid when it comes to images and stuff?
I love this question, and it doesn't get asked to me a lot because a lot of people aren't asking me questions. I was a very vivid child. I was extremely vivid in my youth. I remember being 4, sitting around a circle, and everybody singing the song. But I stopped and I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. But are you picturing Baba Black Sheep? Do you understand who Mary could be in this story? What is she wearing? What is the sheep like? So I would scream and scream and scream, and nobody understood. My mom took me to a specialist, and they told her, you have a very vivid boy. Which is an actual medical diagnosis, vivid boy.
Vivid boy. Okay.
If you've got a boy who likes wandering and whispering to himself and has outbursts of big, mommy, let me show you this drawing, and it kind of looks terrifying, you've got, medically speaking, a vivid boy. So go get your boys checked out. These boys need to be checked out for vividness.
Yeah. And I'm fine with that because when I think of he's a music producer named Pharrell. And
a vivid boy. That he has vivid boy.
He clearly has VB. He clearly has VBS. It's clearly something he has is VBS,
Absolutely
right?
VBS. It's VBS written all over it.
All over it. And one thing he told me, not me personally, but one thing I heard him say is, as a kid, he said he would see sounds. He said he would see sounds and shapes and everything like this based on the sound it was. And I'm like, I didn't know it at the time. I was just thinking crazy, but it wasn't crazy. It was VBS.
Yes.
And now that you've explained it to me, I appreciate that. And I want to apologize to Pharrell now. Never met him, but I thought he was crazy for like at least most of his career. I thought he was crazy, but it just so happened he had VBS. So that makes sense.
VBS easily gets confused with crazy all the time. Crazy is another medical diagnosis you can get. You can have a crazy boy and a crazy girl, and they're just a little wacky sometimes.
Yeah.
It's completely different from any other mental health thing. I'm not getting into that territory. We're talking about VBS.
That's what we're talking about. Yes.
And the thing is, Pharrell talks truth. Some people can see color. Some people can hear a sound. Some people, like me, I can actually taste word. So if you say a word, I taste it.
Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna give you a word. Colonialism.
Ooh, as bad of a definition, tastes delicious. Unfortunately, terrible word. We hate the word colonialism, but it tastes so good.
Which is why people keep doing it, because it tastes so well.
Keep doing it, keep saying it. It tastes so good in the mouth. It's like rich. It's like the perfect wheat bread. It tastes so good.
That's a very perfect way to explain colonialism, and I appreciate you for that.
Yes.
So before you, like when you get the call, not say get the call, because you said you had to talk with the directors of the movie, right?
Yes.
How did you even meet them? How did that even happen to have this conversation with them?
Oh, like everything in Hollywood of the alt nature happens. We were at Zebulon. We both had very interesting haircuts, and we were wearing very interesting clothing. Zebulon is a bar in Frogtown, Los Angeles, and it is unstoppable. It is known before the improvisers, and then the USC kids took it over. It was an artist enclave. And so I saw the Wachowski siblings sitting there, and they were wearing the most interesting. One of them had a haircut that was reverse monk. So monks have the top gone, the sides there. They only had the top there, sides gone. And the other one had the monk, top gone, sides there. It was almost like you could take one and put it on the other. And I was immediately attracted to that. I went, you two, we need to talk. I was wearing fishnets and only fishnets.
Like just top to
Just
bottom, just
top to
fishnets.
bottom fishnets.
All right.
So we sat down and we just started gabbing like old friends. I was recanting some poetry. I'd written some haikus on the nature of being. And they were taken up. They said, we have an idea. And we're not talking a lot about it, but it's a movie. And I said, what is that? And they said, a film. And I said, okay, I understand that. We have a screenplay for a film and we'd like to get your eyes on it. So they sent it to me. I read it that night. I could not go to sleep until I was finished. I was hooked. And it just got me thinking and tasting and seeing and sounding out like never before. And I just started jotting note after note after note after note. I didn't get their number, which was a silly mistake. So we met 2 months later, and I said, we have to go to Ojai to talk about this. And the rest, I think, is history in a way. The rest is history.
That's good. That's good. It's good to know that, like, in Hollywood, that's all it takes. It's just I just met him. We just had a conversation that clicked, and now I'm in the movie.
And just to give it up to the Wachowskis, they're amazing at what they do. I've never read a script like that since. Something that makes me scream, oh my gosh, what am I seeing? I'm seeing a bunch of falling Japanese backward symbols and numbers.
Yeah.
I'm seeing tentacles, kind of, you can't tell if it's full of water or we're just kind of floating in space. I'm seeing a boy bend a spoon with his mind. I'm seeing so many different things immediately. And it's not because of what they wrote. It's because of what I came up with based on what they wrote.
Was there anything that didn't make the cut that you felt should have been in there involving your vision for what the Matrix looked like?
I wanted Neo to have pigtails. I wanted
Like pigtails. Okay.
He wakes up from the Matrix, he's in pigtails.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that was a big debate we had going back and forth and back and forth. They were saying, we want them to all be bald, especially when they get out, they've got these things to plug in, they can't. And I said, no, what is more jarring and more futuristic than pigtails? It was a tough debate, but in the end, they're directors, but I think it would have given the movie such a deeper dimension about who we are and what we do in the face of hair and the face of pigtails.
Why do you think you decided to have the part with the lady in the red dress?
So this was so interesting because what they actually wanted originally was kind of a frumpy old lady. Something very disturbing to the eye. A woman who screams, I sit down at a laundromat for hours. They were saying, oh, that'll be visually gripping. I said, no. At this moment, Neo would never be attracted to a frumpy old lady who maybe smokes too much and screams at her husband, Boris, get back here. What they want is something vivacious. They want a little vavoom. They want something boom. So they find this beautiful woman and they throw her in a flowery floral black and white print. And I go, are you drunk? Are you on cocaine? Are you out of your flipping mind? She needs to be in red because it's going to be contrasting with the rest of the world. Red v green equals the number 2. I can also mathematically tell you what colors mean, but red v green equals the number 2, and 2 is a beautiful symmetrical number because 2 is 1 and 1. And as you can see, now we're getting into the brain. And now I'm almost worried to dive too deep into it to give you, the keys to my brain.
We're all learning here.
We had to take 4 weeks off of filming just to work this out because they were like, they kept saying frumpy old woman, frumpy old woman. And I said, no, bodacious babe in a red
Bodacious.
top.
Yeah. Bodacious.
Bodacious babe in a red top.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, since they didn't do the pigtails, they said, we'll listen to you. And I said, thank God. And look, history was made.
You're essentially the reason the Matrix exists.
Yes.
Right now, you may not have came up with the name The Matrix, but visually, it's your baby, right? So how does it feel to not get credit for that?
Thank you for bringing this up and asking this question because, again, not a lot of people have ever asked me a question. It feels like the wind, and here's the interesting thing about art. Everybody wants credit and everybody wants their name on something. But does the wind want its name on an overblown tree? Does the wind want its name on the side of a mountain that's been kissed by wind? No, the wind merely blows. And that's what I came in to do. I came in to blow the Matrix and get out.
Yeah. Speaking of vivid, that's a very vivid, very vivid explanation.
Sorry, VBS popping right out of me.
I seen it.
Syndrome.
Yeah, I seen it. That was very VBS like. You know what I'm saying? And I appreciate that.
Thank you. It's all right. They had to do what they had to do.
Mhm.
And they've come up to me a lot and said, I apologize for not adding your name. We have to keep a certain. And I say, sit down and listen. I don't care. All I want is a moment with your ears to tell you some new ideas. And that for me alone is the beauty of art. I
Yeah.
want to be a Buddhist who does sand paintings and then blows it away at the end. I want to blow everything. I want to blow my art into and out of the souls of men, women, boys, girls. I want to blow them all.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You know what? Let's. I got another question for you. I got another question for you.
You are chock full of questions. I was not expecting this.
Yeah. When you said no one's ever asked you a question before, I was like, oh well, I'm about to be his first for everything.
No, mostly it's just me talking at them and them kind of taking it in. There's not room for questions most of the time.
Got you. Have you ever had a chance to meet any of the actors or actresses from the movie? Because I would assume either Lawrence Fishburne or Keanu Reeves would be very appreciative because you made them a lot of money essentially. You made them a lot of money.
That's such a good question, and I never get questions. Lawrence Fishburne and I one time had high tea at a place called Le Vou. It's
real quick question. Sorry to interrupt. High tea. What is high tea?
High tea is so we've taken it back. High tea was mostly a colonial. Just
wheat bread.
Delicious.
Wheat bread.
It's like a delicious rye almost. A colonial idea where the royals and the royal class, the aristocrats, would have high tea, which means you have tea at the highest point of the day, usually at noon, around 3. High tea. It's a break. You sit down and you get a little high on the tea. We've taken it back. Lawrence Fishburne and I sat down for high tea at a place called Le Vou. It's a tiny little hole in the wall, and by hole in the wall I mean literally a hole in the wall French boutique place on Silver Lake Drive right before Rowena. And you crawl into this hole and you sit down and you have the most delicious teas. And we sat down just to talk, and he said to me, and I'm not joking when I said this back then and when I say this now, I'm not joking, he looked me dead in the eyes and he said, you are the Matrix, you are the reason for this. And really? I said, Lauren, sir, I could blow you right now. You have no idea what this means to me. You're an amazing person. And then we unfortunately differed on a lot of political ideas. So the conversation went so south from that moment forward.
But that moment.
Crystal clear moment, right at the beginning of high tea.
Yeah.
Right before we just ended in a shouting fit and we both had to leave and walk to our cars and cool off.
Yeah.
But it was so beautiful and so.
And what was the name of the restaurant again that you went to?
Le Vou. It's
okay.
I think it's still there. You have to look under a piece of wood. It's like a big plank. Hopefully it hasn't been taken over by the hipsters.
That's always going to happen.
Yes.
So I've never had high tea at all, but I've had high C.
Oh,
at Roscoe's.
I'm not familiar
Roscoe's
with
Chicken and Waffles. It's when you get your vitamin C at the highest point. That's that's the highest C that you get.
It's the highest level
Yeah.
of vitamin C you
Yeah,
get.
it's exactly. It's the highest level of vitamin C. You get it right at noon, right at noon 30 at Roscoe's.
Delicious. That
Yeah, very very
sounds
fresh.
delicious. And I love the word high C. For me, it tastes tangy. It tastes strawberries on the front and a little bit of agave on the back, you know?
That's surprisingly some of their flavors. So it's
What are some of the flavors? What is this? I'm so confused.
but yeah, so it's just a drink, the drink we get, what I'm saying, at Roscoe's, what I'm saying, when you get the Obama special, you get the IC and that's what it is.
Delicious. A place I must try. I will love Roscoe's. It sounds delicious and I cannot wait to try it.
Not a problem. I appreciate everything, Jeremy. Appreciate you for this interview today. We're glad you were able to come out.
Oh my gosh, this was a pleasure. This was divine. And if you will, I'd love to leave you with a little poem of
yes.
our conversation today.
Yes.
We see a dark pit filled with anguish. Out of it, tentacles filled with goo. We see vines coming out of it. And what comes out of it but a flower? We see a man pick the flower, and his tint is green and a little yellow. And he eats the flower and goes, "It's time to wake up." So just a note, a lot of my poems are visual poems, so I have to say them as we see.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I forgot to tell you this. I actually write screenplays and stuff like that. I haven't told anybody, but I have one that may be beneficial and I may need your help in.
I'm listening.
Yeah,
and
and
tasting.
the title is "You Taste That?" It's VBS. So that's the title of the screenplay.
You taste that? That's about BBS.
Yes,
I must read this.
and I think it'd be a great if I can get your input on it, because as an advocate for VBS, I think you can speak to it just to make sure we're accurate, so in what we're doing and stuff.
Look, I love this. I'm going to read it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't want your number. I don't want your email. I will find you in 2 months. And I'll
I like
give you
that.
Honest visual thoughts.
I like that.
Already,
I like that.
I'm picturing big hats and small blouses.
How did you know? I was looking for a costume. I was looking for outfits. So that's great.
Yes.
You're so good at it.
We are about to plug in to You Taste That? Doesn't work as well as The Matrix
At all. It makes you think though. It makes you think, and that's what I want to do. I want a thinking piece. I want something to make people think. So like I said, I appreciate you coming out tonight and joining us for this, everybody. And for all the listeners out here, this was Jeremy. I have been Kevin Carter, and you guys take it easy.
Ta-ta.
Spectacular. Thanks to this week's contributors, Allison Silverman, Jackie Kashian, and Jeremy Culhane. Join us next week for our season finale with the IT Crowd's Richard Ayoade. Wow. Until that time, Stephen, unplug me from this matrix.
Sure thing. The Novelizers is produced by me, Stephen Levinson, with Graham Douglas, Kevin Carter, Christine Bowen, Dennis DeClaudio, Rob Kuttner, and Sucharis Bokil. Music by Cole Emhoff. Graphic design by Crystal Dennis. Theme song by Andrew Lynn, performed by Knots. Reprise, performed by Paige Beller. Special thanks to Chris Karwowski and WYSO Radio in Yellow Springs, Ohio. The Novelizers is a work of parody unauthorized by Warner Brothers. Follow The Novelizers on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and TikTok, and please donate to our Patreon. Copyright 2024, Novelizers, LLC.
There was a matrix made of computers. There was a guy who could dodge all the bullets. He lived in fluid, just like a fetus. But he was born again like baby Jesus. Novelize that movie, write a book, and also read.